Lloyds Bank is not looking good. This is wicked. A lot of small business owners are claiming that Lloyds Bank intentionally stole from them. Lloyds Bank intentionally sold off their business without their permission. Hi guys, so today on BBC iPlayer, I watched a panorama called Did Lloyds Bank Fail My Business? Now I have to add, if you don't understand economics, if you don't understand economical language and finance and stuff like that, don't bother watching this documentary because it is very complicated. I must say, I am not somebody who understands economics. However, I am able to come here and explain to you everything that was going on because I used a bit of ChatGPT and Google to verify meanings of words I don't understand. So I'm not an expert in finance. However, I've come here to educate you on it because I've learned a bit and I feel a bit smarter. Anyway, in 2008, we suffered from a recession. In this documentary, the journalist goes and interviews business owners who had gone to Lloyds to take out loans for their business. And these business owners are basically claiming that Lloyds rubs them blind. These business owners are claiming that they are victims of Lloyds banks as they were deceitful. Let's talk about what Lloyds did. So, 2 years before the financial crisis in 2008, there was a business owner called Keith. He owned a car company, a business that deals with cars. Now, he got a loan from Lloyds Bank. That loan was worth £8 million. Now, you need to remember that Lloyds said his business was profitable. Lloyds said his business was profitable, so he was allowed to get out this loan to extend his business and build a new site. In an email that was written by Lloyds, they said that Keith's business is profitable but is struggling short term because, of course, Keith needs to get back the money that he has put into the business to extend his site. Now, when any bank gives you a loan, they obviously think you can pay the loan back. This wasn't said in the documentary, you just got to use your own background knowledge. So Lloyds gave him an £8 million loan, obviously knowing that he's financially capable to pay that loan back. When Keith was struggling a little bit, Lloyds agreed for him to delay his repayments. Lloyds said to him, we can extend the date in which you repay your loan. And they were happy for that. Lloyds Bank also agreed to extend his overdraft to £1.75 million. Again, if a bank can extend your overdraft to £1.75 million, they think you can pay back £1.75 million. Lloyds also told him that he should get a non-executive advisor. This is basically a critical friend which will give you financial advice for your business. This critical friend, I assume, comes from Lloyds. They work for Lloyds. Now, that non-executive advisor, let's call it critical friend to make it simpler, that critical friend told Keith, the business owner, to apply for another £2 million overdraft. This is somebody who is hired by Lloyds to give financial advice to a struggling business. They also said he should go to the business support unit, the BSU. This is a segment or a section in Lloyds Bank that helps struggling businesses. Unfortunately, Keith didn't know that behind his back, PwC, which is a law firm that deals with banks, was advising Lloyds to sell his business behind his back. Obviously, PwC, who was hired by Lloyds, were arguing that Keith's business is struggling. Keith has taken out all these overdrafts, but he was advised to. Keith has taken out a loan and he's paying his loan back late because Lloyds agreed. But now all of a sudden, they are saying his business is struggling. His business looks like it is struggling because Lloyds have given him financial advice to take out overdrafts, and Lloyds have agreed for him to pay loans back late. There was an agreement here. All of a sudden, his business is struggling. Now, by December, Lloyds Bank called in its loans. This is the hard financial language. Basically, by December, Lloyds said, we want the loans paid back. We want the loans repaid back now. Bear in mind, they had extended the date, but all of a sudden, they've said, no, we want the loans now. We want the loans to be repaid back early. Out of the blue, Lloyds demanded the money, all of that money, to be paid back. Bear in mind, he has taken out extra overdrafts. This is ridiculous. He couldn't repay the loans. Lloyds is saying your business is struggling. That's why you've gone to the business support unit. He's only struggling because you've advised him to take out more and more money. Now he can't pay the money back. And guess what Lloyds did? Cheeky. Keith's business was valued at 13 million, but it was sold for 4 million. And Lloyds, to add insult to injury, took a 15% stake. So this man is saying, were you intentionally trying to fail my business and steal my business from me? Because that's what it looks like. Can't blame him, can you? Then you had another man. This was a very simple case. Another man who owned a business. Lloyds allowed him to take out an overdraft. His interest rates kept rising until they got to 27%. Excuse me. This is stupid. How can interest rates rise consistently up until they got to 27%? This man was struggling with his business. He's a small business owner. Lloyd said, you need to pay back the money. The interest rate is at 27%. We want the money. The man said, what do you mean? I don't have that. Even big businesses will struggle with such a stupid interest rate. So Lloyd said, you know what? You're going to have to sell your property. Lloyd's called in their debts, again, that financial language. So they asked for their money back on a whim and said, you know, if you can't pay, we'll take it away. We want to repossess your property. And the reason why we can repossess your property is because you only live in 40% of your house and you rent out the rest. And now the last man I want to talk about was Kashif. I had to rewatch his story about 4 times to understand and even turn down the speed. And by the way, I usually watch things in 2 times speed. I put it in 1 time speed and boy, it was sluggish. So Kashif had a business. He looked for a bank that will give him a good loan. Lloyds had the best terms and conditions, and Lloyds said, we will give you a loan of £3 million. Again, clearly he was capable of paying it back. Lloyds' fault. They paid Kashif £2.5 million of the loan that they promised him. So they were meant to pay him £3 million. They paid £2.5 million, and they were meant to pay him more later, the other 0.5 million. So this money, the loan money, was secured against his property portfolio. Again, very complicated financial language. All that means is that if he can't repay the loan, his properties will be sold. That's it. That's how he was able to get the loan. Also, as part of the deal, Kashif had to move his assets over. Again, more complicated language, but he basically had to move his properties into the name of Lloyds Bank. So Lloyds Bank temporarily have ownership of his properties. If he can't repay the loan, then Lloyds has every right to resell his assets. So long story short, Kashif couldn't move his property over because basically his management agent did not like that. So because he couldn't move the properties over, Lloyds got annoyed. So Lloyds basically demanded that he paid back the loans. They refused to give him the remaining money because of this. And then Lloyd said, we're going to sell your stuff. You're taking too long to pay us our money. We're selling your stuff. Again, more financial language. The fact that Kashif said they fire sold his assets means that Lloyds were just trying to get rid of his assets as soon as possible. They sold his assets for less than the market price. So he made a loss. Lloyds were very impatient. They couldn't wait for him to move the rest of his assets. They were like, you know what, sod it, you're not going to pay us back. So let's demand our loans right now because we can see you're struggling, and sell all your assets off if you can't pay it back. Absolutely atrocious. So yeah, that's it really. I think it was very complicated financial language. So I tried to break it down for you. But if you're into finance and economics and you're smart like that, you can watch this documentary.